Evening and Sabko Pranam. First of all, let me say I'm very nervous to even talk in this group, and I'll try and mostly relate my personal journey. And I think that's the best way of sharing what my thoughts and my practice has been so far in life. So it all started way back in 1990 when I moved to Mumbai with a job in corporate organization, and then this was the first time I actually left Ranchi, and I was very unhappy. Initially, few days, few weeks went by well, but after that, I started feeling very lonely, missing family, and finding it very difficult, and was overwhelmed with the city of Mumbai and the atmosphere and the environment in which I landed. And of course, by choice, so I can't complain about it. So that's when, almost every day I used to wake up thinking, "Yeah, I should resign and go back home and be with my family and my father." I had lost my mother at an earlier stage of my life. So that was the beginning of probably the quest and finding what is the right philosophy to follow in life. So it was all because of those hardships which I was feeling internally in that overwhelming city, as I called it at that point in time, that I started looking out for some way of finding something to anchor myself on and to hold on to fundamentally. And that is where I met a friend of mine who introduced me. And before that, I did, like most of us, start with Will Durant's, book of philosophy and etc., which I also read, but I couldn't understand or follow at all most of that. So that's when I got introduced. And when I got introduced to this Buddhism, Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism, I was very told a few things which really sort of clicked with my own belief and my own thinking at that point in time. And the first one was that we have to practice. And that word for me has been very, very important all my life, because that's where I think real journey or real understanding and everything comes into play. So when I met them, the first concept, which came through, which hit me quite hard, was karma. And I'm going to be very, very simple, and I'll only express the way I understand it. So very straightforward. So this word, when I heard, and when they explained to me that karma is not just, for me, it was all action. It meant taking action. But then I learned that no, it's not just action, it's, thoughts, words, and action. So that was very critical. And that I said, oh, wow, that's a very important thing to understand, that karma is not only created by action. So that was my first encounter and my first thing which really, really hit me. And I said, okay, I have to work on my thoughts. I have to work on the choice of my words. And then the second thing that came as a very big learning for me was attitude. And I used to tend to meet people at that point in time and generally complain about things. Oh, life is not so good. Job is okay, but some managers are not good. So mostly complaining. Food is not good, and everything was hunky dory before. Now it's so difficult, and so on and so forth. Then I was told, look, you have to get out of this complaining attitude. And it wasn't easy. Even now, I complain after almost 30 plus years of practice. But that hit me hard, and I started changing my words. I started changing my language. Whenever I used to feel bad about things, I would just try and move my focus to something else. And that's when I started less and less complaining. And I found that very helpful to me. And one big learning came when I had a very bad day with my manager. And I was meeting this friend of mine who was also in the practice, and we used to discuss things. And I'll talk about why it is so critical. And I told him, you know what, this is really not good. I don't understand why this has happened. And I was supposed to actually go for a training program, which was at the last minute cancelled, and another colleague of mine was asked to go instead of me. And I was very upset about that because I was looking forward to it quite a bit. And I had a huge thirst and hunger for knowledge. So I said, oh my God, what a miss, and what a big thing I'm going to miss. So I was given sort of a guidance saying that you have to pray for the happiness of your manager. And that was like, what do you mean? So I started trying to do that. I failed almost 10, 15, 20 days. I couldn't. And in our practice, we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and I'll talk about that a little more in detail. Um, so when I was asked to chant that, I was to sit, and every time, I would try to do that, I would like get so upset and so angry, and very negative thoughts would come into my mind, and the face of my manager would be like, I would like to smash it kind of feeling I would get. But I was constantly told, no, you have to overcome. And I did finally. After few weeks, I could. And I started very small, maybe 3, 4 seconds or 10 seconds to begin with. But slowly, I got to a point where I could actually, pray for somebody I was unhappy about. So that was a very profound experience, and that's where I started focusing on this practice even more. So the practice has, three tenets. We say that it has faith, study, and practice, the three pillars, and all three are important. And why it is important? So we used to have study meetings, we used to chant, that's to deepen the faith, and then put the philosophy into practice. So basically, this was what I was probably looking out for, a life philosophy which I can practice to improve mine and others' lives. And that is how this first concept of faith, practice, and study came. So we have these three things in a very, very structured way. We study a lot, because if we don't study and we don't understand the concepts, then, as I was telling you, to be able to put that in practice will be difficult. And faith is obviously when you chant. So with that's when we were introduced to Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which is what we chant. And other thing that I liked about this was, personally, that when you chant, you have to keep your eyes open. You have to sit. There are no rituals. A morning, evening, yes, it is advised to do that, but no fixed timing or no rituals. You can sit in a quiet place and chant, and you have to be careful. You're not disturbing other members of the family or making noise or anything, but you're chanting, keeping your eyes open, and actually, with the sound. And the concept behind that was that this is an active meditation where you chant and you're not closing your eyes to the reality of your life and surrounding and the world. And at the same time, this chant is basically to create the life force within for dealing with the life's challenges or living, for being happy. So that's the concept of Namya Renge Kyo. Basically, a very, I would say, broad level translation is that I dedicate myself to the mystic law of cause and effect. So it's basically based on the theory of karma, of course, which is what Buddha taught. And then the other thing that was told to us, and that also hit me hard, and which I think is very critical, is that when you chant, you have to chant for something. It's like a target. It's like a vow. So the next thing I understood about how prayers are actually seen. Here, prayer is not your asking for or seeking for something from outside. Here, prayers are where you are actually making a vow, you're making a determination to achieve something, to do something good. So that also was a very big thing for me, because I thought, oh wow, this is important, because we grew up in an environment where prayers meant something else. We could go and ask for something, somebody could pray for us. But here it was like you have to make your own determination. So prayer is nothing but the determination that you have to overcome some challenge, or you have to win something, or you have to achieve something that you're looking forward to. And every time we sit for chanting, we keep our goals in mind, very clear cut goals. So that brought me to the other concept of this practice, and that is the concept of proofs. So, like, there are three types of proof: documentary, theoretical, and actual proof. So, documentary and theoretical are critical, very important. You have to learn, you have to read, you have to understand, definitely. But actual proof is when you apply that practice, when you apply that philosophy, how does it actually manifest in your life? And that becomes actual proof. And we share it with others in the practice. And that became another cornerstone for me to continue with this practice, because theoretical proof and documentary proof for me was a little easier to understand and follow, because there are books and everything. And then there are meetings, and we have discussion meetings, we have study meetings every month. So that was much easier. But actual proof was like, okay, now let me put this to action and see what the actual proof is. So you make your determination, you put your goals in front of yourself, and then you pray. So that's where I started connecting the dots, that you make your own determination, that is your prayer. And when we make our own determination, it is not just about ourselves, because ultimately we have to be praying for ourselves and for others also. Because, and I'll come to that concept in a while, of how we have to adopt and adapt to the oneness of life and environment. So that's the kind of initial actual proofs that I started seeing in my life. And then the next concept, which really was very, very critical for me to understand, and really I understood, was how does the life condition of people change. And there are 10 life conditions that we talk about in Buddhism. And those 10 life conditions are, let me read it out for you. uh, so it's hell, hunger, animality, anger, tranquility, rapture, then learning, realization, bodhisattva, and Buddhahood. Now, this one has heard, and even I had heard about it, but getting little deeper into it is very important, and that is that what is this? When you talk about hell, it means you're completely powerless. Whatever your circumstances, you're unable to fight it out or get trapped in it. Hunger is where there is insatiable greed. Animality is when there is your whole action in life is governed by instinct, not by wisdom or thought or decision. Anger, of course. So this anger, when I learned about anger, was about, when does one get angry, is when one's ego is hurt. So actually, anger is self-directed. It impacts us more than others, and that's the state of anger. Humanity and tranquility is when you are in a little better state of life, where you can make some fair judgment, fair call, which then leads you to the next state of life, which is rapture, which is a little bit of happiness, a feeling of joy because you have achieved something. But interestingly, it disappears very quickly with time. I mean, I get a raise in my compensation, and in 2 3 months time it becomes meaningless, or again you get down to the different state of feeling, oh, it's not enough. The seventh stage was learning. That is where one really gets into a state of life where one is seeking to learn things, to reform himself. The eighth stage was of realization, where you start absorbing things through reflection, through your own observation, and that's when you start discovering things, and this is through realization. Ninth is a state of a bodhisattva where you actually not only aspire to enlighten yourself, but also others. So, this is where you're actually, we say that we pray for self and for others. And the last state is what Buddhahood is, which is enlightenment, where you're it's a very solid state where you feel enlightened, you are full with boundless wisdom, courage, compassion, energy. Basically, in that state, you're able to find the truth in all the phenomena that you observe or see or you encounter. Now, these 10 states were easily understood, but the crux is that each of these 10 states, there's a mutual possession, which means in our life, we are not in one state always, because even if I am in a state of hell, there is a state of Buddhahood still as a part of it, and vice versa, which means in my particular life, because I used to think, oh, I have done my prayers, I'm very well prepared for the day, I go to work and something happens and suddenly I'm feeling, oh my God, helpless. And then I start finding ways and means, and then I find a solution to that. So you see, the life goes through these 10 states, and in each state there is a mutual possession of other states. So even if one is in, so there is no static state of life, it keeps fluctuating. Then what is this practice about? Then this practice is about to keep enhancing your life state through creating the life energy by putting the philosophy in practice on one hand, by studying, and also by deepening your faith and doing your active chanting that we call. So there is a mutual possession of this, because earlier I used to think, oh, one can be in one life state and move to the next, and then you'll never come back to the earlier life state. No, it moves quite a bit. And slowly, slowly, with deepening of practice, we are able to hold ourselves in the higher state for longer period of time. And at some stage, our life tendencies, because each one of us have some of our life tendencies where we tend to be most of the time, we are able to elevate from there. That's how the practice works. So this is a little bit of theoretical concept, but in practice, how did I experience it? So for everything, I started clear cut, trying to change myself. How could I change my, how am I going to, if there is some achievement I want to have in the field of, say, for example, my job, I would actually then go and acquire knowledge of that, speak to my managers, and then work through it, work for it, and then find some possible way of making myself visible with that delivery. And all of these started slowly building in my own wisdom world, and that's how I started growing in my career. That's one part of it. But then again, life is not just about career and job. It's about family, it's about your own life, your own personal needs, your own family, your friends, environment, community. So I started slowly, slowly understanding these things much deeper through this practice. And also by keeping myself very focused on studying these concepts. All these concepts then landed me one day to a very big question. And that was, so what is the purpose of life ultimately? What is it that one is, looking out for? And very simplistically, I was told happiness. So then my next question was, so what is happiness? And it took me a lot of time to really understand. And I finally, and this is my personal understanding now, the true happiness I have always experienced when I have actually made others happy. And that's a very, very strong kind of self, I would say, realization. So if I had And that is, and I'll share very frankly one incident. So I had to look after my family, and 80-90% of my monthly pay I had to send home. A situation, and I had to manage my own living in Mumbai those days, with a very small meager amount. And so sometimes, like, so once or twice, my boss in fact was like, let's go out for a trip here, Lonavala. Those days I'm talking of early and mid 90s, and I used to say no, because that would mean I have to spend a lot of money, because so I used to say no, no, I'm home, I've got work or something. I'd make excuse. And then, they knew that I had, and some, slowly they got to know that I had to really look after my family. So once or twice they just sat me down to tell me, hey, listen, this is not right, you should save something more for yourself. And a lot of times I was given this kind of, I would say, unwarranted advice. And trust me, I never listened. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I never listened. I did what I wanted to do, because that gave me much more happiness, you know, than probably a trip to Lonavala or a trip to Khandala those days. So this is how this practice helped me, because I understood that this is my life's understanding of my happiness. And if I have to listen to others, then probably that'll make me unhappy actually at the end of the day. So that was the journey, and it was tough, because at some point in time, all your close friends, colleagues all started, what is this? Let's do this, let's do that. Why are you not listening? And trust me, today, after many years, when I meet these guys, many of them have also, started practicing, etc. But they sometimes they talk about it and they say, my goodness, this determination and this prayer of yours, or whatever it was at your time, at those days, younger days. No, no, I'm still young, but relatively, I really feel that, and this was the actual proof. So I wanted to relate it back to the actual proof. If this practice explains to me that this is happiness, and I don't believe in it, I don't put it to practice, then where is the actual proof coming from? So that was another example. The other very strong experience of mine is about understanding death. So, uh, my my father, I think his very big goal, and he was very ambitious from, I would say, in terms of the background and the reality that he had seen, and he had brought up his children. And I was one of those. We are 12 actually, and I was youngest. I am youngest, and that's my family. And I'm the youngest of the 12 children. And my father made sure that everybody gets good education, but I was the most privileged one. Maximum money was spent on sending me to school and etc. And I think he had a very big desire to send at least one of his children to US. And so in 1998 I got an opportunity, and the company sent me to US. And the last I saw him was at the airport, sitting with me and sending me off. Because when I went there, I had a 3 years kind of a transfer. But 6 months, 5 months after that, I lost my dad. I couldn't see him after that. And I was in US. Of course, I came back. But I was devastated at that point in time. And I was in a foreign country, foreign land, no family members, nobody. It's the worst thing to suffer. You are completely. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm getting little. Uh, yeah. So still, it was very difficult. End of the day. And that time I was chanting and was in the practice. I met some practitioners and some leaders, and they were very supportive. And that's another part of this practice that I actually is the actual proof. They were very supportive. Uh, they used to be around me. They used to help me chant, and they used to, support me at that point in time. And that's when one of the leaders actually told me that, if you don't understand death, you will never understand life. And that was a shock to me. So, what do you mean? And that's when, I started studying about it and I started learning about it. And from Buddhist perspective, in the theory of karma, we have life after death. And, it's like, so very nicely and that piece of paper I still possess, he drew and he said, it's like changing the body gets old, like when your clothes get old, you can't wear it, it will not serve its purpose, so you have to change. So, your body has to change, but you continue to live. So death is just change of body, and then there's a life and death, and this cycle of birth and rebirth is there. So even at that point in time, when all of this was told, it was not easy to accept it. The constant question is, why me? Why my father? And that also in a situation where I was very happy that I could fulfill one of his dreams, and I was very close to him. Of course, all of us are like with parents, so it's not an exception, I would say. But that's when I realized that, oh my God, if this is how this philosophy explains, and there's this organization, Soka Gakkai is the name of the organization, which is worldwide, and these people, and today I have lost more. I've lost two siblings. I've lost um, my brother and sister, and three of my brother-in-laws. So it's always been very difficult. So it's not that you understand it once and you can face that reality when it hits you. So a close family member or a friend, when they go away, it's definitely not easy, even today. But what has become easy is my understanding that I have to keep praying for their rebirth into a good environment, better life, happy life. And I chant much more. And that's how I draw the life energy to face even that situation. So that's how this practice, and I keep using the word practice because study is essential. Please, it is equally essential, and so is belief and faith. But for me, my driving force is practice. My personal inclination is more to practice because that is where I find my life progressing. So the other experience and the other concept I thought I'll share with all of us is the concept of what we call oneness of life and environment. So it was very, very interesting. I learned about this oneness because how are we so interconnected and so related? So, from the viewpoint, and I'll read this, that from the viewpoint of ultimate reality and individual self and environment are one and inseparable. Life manifests itself both the living subject, that is the self, and the objective environment. So it manifests in both life. So we cannot just distinguish ourselves from one from the other. Each living being has his or her own unique environment, and the effects of karma appear both in the self and in the environment. Now that is so critical. So this is where the deeper understanding of how what we are thinking, what we are saying, how we are impacting others, all of that come into play. And I'll share one, again, personal experience. So I was traveling, and this is during my early days of practice, and I had to share the room with one of my colleagues. That was for a program that I had to attend, and somehow, it was not as I had to share the room ultimately. So early morning, I used to get up, and I generally used to chant, and I still chant early morning, first thing in the morning. As soon as I get up, I chant. Now here is a colleague who's sleeping if I chant, I'll get disturbed. He'll get disturbed. He'll wake up. He doesn't wake up at that early hours. And so I spoke to one of the members and leaders, and I was told, you cannot disturb. So you just keep lying down or just in your mind you chant. That's enough. That's good enough. And that's why I said that this is not very ritualistic. And this became a very big learning for me, that if I pray, if I chant, and if that is disturbing someone else, then actually I'm not following the practice in its real true way. Because if the practice is to make my environment and others' environment good, then how can I disturb his environment? So that was a very deep understanding. So that is why from that time onwards, I pray, I do my chanting, everything, but I make sure, even because in my home, I'm the first one to get up. My family gets up a little later. My wife is not around, so I can speak to it frankly right now. So that was another very deep learning, that any practice of life philosophy has to make you and others happy. So you have to consider others as well. And that is what is the meaning of oneness of life and environment as I understood. And that another concept which really helps me today to make many decisions, uh, you know, in terms of sometimes some decisions have to be very harsh ones on yourself. I'm talking about how it is harsh on myself. And that is where the real challenge of practice comes. So intellectually, sometimes I see very different thing, but from adopting and adapting to the practice, I have to be very, very, very strong in terms of pushing myself. And that concept in this is called human revolution. So this whole practice, as we call it, is changing our own self. And the oneness, एक minute, uh, Rekha, Rekha, नहीं, sorry. Uh, so when we talk about changing our own self, and that is the real thing that we can do. And I learned through this practice that I cannot change anyone else, but if I change myself in response to my change, my environment or other members may change. That's very, and that was very, very big learning for me in terms of this concept. Sorry, I saw Gopal Ranjanji. You want to say something?
No, I'm sorry, Awdheshji. It was by mistake. Sorry.
No problem. Sorry, I thought you wanted. Okay, so this whole concept of oneness of life and environment becomes so important to drive change within myself. I mean, the truth of the matter is that if I'm angry, I'll make others angry around me. If I am not able to maintain my calmness in a very challenging situation, I will not be able to maintain calmness in the environment. And the moment I actually think like that, it helps me to deal with situations, and as tough or as challenging as any situation, because I know now the concept of oneness of life and environment, and I adopt and adapt and practice that, so as to keep it little bit in under control by controlling myself, not others, because others I cannot influence. I've learned that. I mean, nobody, even as close as children, when they grow, they have their own mind, their own life. Even them, one can only talk to, or at the best convey certain things, but choices of theirs, I cannot make. That's thing. The one more concept that I have to share is, what is my life's calling? And that's where I would say my life's calling is responsibility. And it has been so right from my childhood, and I've seen it that way, and I've learned it that way. uh, being responsible for myself, for my work, my job, my family, my own personal growth and development, taking responsibility, and that has built and helped me have an attitude of service and taking accountability. And that actually took away the complaining attitude that I used to have in plenty. Uh, Today I'm able to not complain. Relatively, I wouldn't say that I'm 100% there. The journey is on, as I've always said. It's a journey. It's not a destination. And the other thing that today I have conquered to a large extent, I would say, is my ability to pray for people for situations which are negative or which are troublesome. I can really generate those, power of energies, life energy from within to pray for their happiness. Of course, the largest recipient today of that prayer is my wife, but that's so I learned this very hard, but I learned it very well that if others are happy, they will not make me unhappy. And similarly, if I am happy, I will not make others unhappy. So I do a lot of check and balance when I do my morning and evening chanting. um, some days are bad and I'm not there at all. I'm probably 5 to 10% maybe comparatively in last 30 years where I ideally should be. But yes, I do try and maintain some of these actual practices and self human revolution at a very deeper level. And the last part, if I can share this graph, I don't know. Let me try. Window. Uh, I don't know if we can. Can you see this graph?
We
No.
can't see it. You have to share your screen, Awdheshji.
Oh, screen, entire screen. Okay. Is it
Uh,
now available? No.
n- Not yet.
Okay. Entire screen. Ah, share.
Oh, that down arrow, that arrow at the bottom.
Huh. I did that on the top. I have selected. Oh, share. Oh no. 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 I'm doing entire screen, and then I'm saying share.
You have to you have to click at that window. There'll be something.
Additionally, you have to click on the preview, that screen preview, and then it will allow you to, share.
Oh, screen preview. Entire screen. Entire screen. Ah, okay. Share. No,
Yes, now it is showing.
it is showing. Okay. This
Started
one.
showing. Yes, we can see it now.
So this is all I can say in conclusion, and then we can have a Q&A. Life for me is a journey between the heart and the mind. I have not put a brain there because there are doctors here in the group. They may challenge saying brain is not the only organ which holds the mind. My personal knowledge, I don't know where mind rests. It's in the muscles or the brain or wherever. So just to remove that confusion, I put mind here and heart, of course. And I think life is a journey between just mind and heart. What we know is what mind is all about. How we practice is heart. And there is always a dissonance here that I face in my life. Where it integrates and where there is an integrity and oneness of this, I see life moving smoothly. Otherwise, if too much of heart, then suffering, too much of mind, then also suffering. So I try and integrate both as much as I can. but I believe in the treasure of heart much more than in treasure of storehouse, as it is called in our Buddhist concepts. There are three types of treasures. One is a treasure of storehouse, which is our wealth, material, and all of that. Two is the storehouse of and body, which is our health and ability and intellectual capability. But the third one is the treasure of heart. And the difference between the three is material and storehouse treasure may be lost. Even body's treasure is not permanent. But your heart, if your heart is in the right place, if it is strong, you can rebuild your storehouse or your body treasures with the power of heart. So oneness with heart is where I try to uh, work on. In our group, most of the times I've seen some shairi, some lines, some words, some many things coming up about dil and about heart, and and I believe that that's really what is the basic tenet of my journey in my life. Keep strengthening the treasure of heart. So I'll stop here, and yes, happy to take questions or discussion.
Thank you so much, Awdhesh. Awdhesh, you can stop sharing your screen. You just have to stop sharing. Yes. Yes, that's
Thank
better.
you. Sorry.
Thank you so much. So before we go into the Q&A session, Awdhesh, I have a request. I'm sorry, I'm talking out of turn here. My request is kindly share this graph in the group. It's a beautiful graph, and it speaks a lot. That graph speaks a lot. So
Abhi
kindly.
bhej. I will. I'll
Ji,
send it. Yeah.
ji.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Now the house is open for questions, comments from the audience here. Anyone? So while we are waiting for this,
So
Awdeshji,
I
another.
don't have a question now,
Yeah,
Awdeshji.
yeah, Gopalji. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have a question, Awdeshji, but very cogently put, and and it is quite evident in the way, I mean, you put all these principles across with those examples. I mean, it's really, I mean, very, I mean, with my heart, I feel whatever you shared, and all these concepts, etc., that you shared. I mean, it had no jargon per se. I mean, it was just pure, plain heart speak. So wonderful session of this.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely in agreement. Any other comments, questions from anyone? Yes, sir. Dr. Jha, sir.
Uh, I don't know why, but I was listening to Awdeshji, and I was more than once reminded of Kamaini by Prasad, and some of the lines that I remember from that great. It's almost an epic, I would say. Is one about the life and environment being the same. Another is you are trying, unless you try to make others happy, you will not be happy. Uh, I wonder if Prasad was actually having this at the back of his mind, and yeah, did he really study Buddhism? Because he says, औरों को हंसते देखो मनु, हंसो और सुख पाओ, अपने सुख को विस्तृत कर लो, जग को सुखी बनाओ. If you make the world happy, your own happiness grows. It's almost this what you told us this evening, and one about the practice, the term you used so many times. There's another couplet from that great book. It's ज्ञान दूर कुछ क्रिया भिन्न हो, आशा क्यों पूरी हो मन की, एक दूसरे से मिल न सके, यह विडंबना है जीवन की. The study, faith, but actually, unless this is in agreement, total agreement with practice, it doesn't make any sense. ज्ञान दूर कुछ क्रिया भिन्न हो, आशा क्यों पूरी हो मन की. So Gyan, your knowledge has to be in tune with your actions. This is what you were trying to mean, and what you meant, and you tried to convey it to us. It's really surprising. And I don't know why this cropped up. When I was listening to you attentively, the presentation was excellent. And as someone said, Gopalji said, there's no jargons, no panditri ki hum ye show off karna nahi hai, but it all came from the heart. Very composed, very cool presentation. But while I was with you, mine was wavering somewhere else. And this question cropped up. Did Jayasankar Prasad study Buddhism while he was writing Kamayani? But excellent. To sum up, excellent presentation.
Thank you. Arun Bhaiya.
Sorry, I was talking on mute. Arun sir, kindly. Yeah.
एक्चुअली झा जी के सवाल का उत्तर है कि महादेवी वर्मा और जयशंकर प्रसाद दोनों बुद्धिज्म से काफी अधिक इम्प्रेस थे. महादेव वर्मा एट वन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम वांटेड टू एम्ब्रेस बुद्धिज्म. गांधी जी ने उनको मना नहीं किया, लेकिन उनको सजेस्ट किया कि यू कैन यूज दी लर्निंग्स. और जयशंकर प्रसाद जी के साथ भी वही बात है कि दोनों बुद्धिज्म से काफी अधिक प्रभावित हैं. अवधेश, मेरा सवाल नहीं, आई एम जस्ट टॉकिंग टू माई सेल्फ. यूज द वर्ड कॉलिंग एंड देन यू सेड माई कॉलिंग वॉज माई रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. ये जो कॉलिंग था, डिड यू रिसीव एट सम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम, और इट वाज ग्रेजुअली दैट यू एज यू लिव्ड you realize that this is what is going to be my calling? Am I clear, Awdhesh?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So actually, I would say that I adopted this much early in my age. And at that time, I had no understanding if this is, to call it a calling or something. But from a very early age, I started taking responsibility, and I started feeling good about it. And I always felt more accomplished from a very young age when I took responsibility. So why I answered this as my calling was because a few years back in one of such seminars, I was asked actually, what's been the calling in your life? And that was the first time I thought, and this is about 2018, I remember very well. And I also remember that instance when somebody asked me this from the audience, and that's when I really thought about it. And I said, look, as you asked this question, I think if I look at my life and my own self, it's been responsibility from a very early age. So that's what it is. So I don't know exactly if there's a point in time or anything.
Excellent. Anybody else?
Any other points? Any other questions?
I think Sarita ma'am has raised the hand.
Sarita ma'am, yes. Sarita ma'am. Sarita ma'am, you have to unmute yourself.
It was an excellent presentation, and also, as everybody said, that it was coming from your heart. It looks like you did not prepare nothing. Whatever came in your mind and heart together, you just said it.
Yes.
My learning from you is that whatever change you want in your environment and people around you, you be the change.
Exactly.
And I think that's what I am going to follow now. So if you ask someone, okay, don't be angry, well, you have to show yourself that you are not angry. And this was I became very for a while, I became speechless. I couldn't say anything, even if I wanted to. So this was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I think Dr. Jha has raised his hand again. So, Dr. Jha.
Just a comment and a question. Only this morning, I was reading one of the booklets that is always there on my bed, and there I could not verify it. It was about Lord Buddha's saying, and he says, "Try to find life. Death will in any case find you." While you were talking about understanding death, I was reminded of this line. This I read this morning
Wow.
before going for a morning walk. So
Wow.
that's a coincidence. But then understanding death, uh, you try to find life, death will find you. It has some meaning behind it. And you said that you tried to understand death, and you were told to understand death before you are at peace with yourself. And this is tough, as you said,
Yeah.
in spite of all the practice.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
अलाउ मी टू पीप इन झा जी, ये मेरे मन में भी आया था। बेसिकली बुद्धिज्म के साथ हुआ क्या है कि लाइक ऑल अदर फॉर्म्स ऑफ एनी आइडियोलॉजी और इतना चेंजेस जो महायान, हीनयान, जापानीज, तिब्बतन बुद्धिज्म में हुआ है कि बहुत बार ऐसा हुआ है कि जो लाइन्स हम लोग या वो लोग बुद्ध को एट्रीब्यूट करते हैं, शायद वो बुद्ध ने नहीं कहा था। ये कई बार ऐसा हुआ है। तो आई फुल्ली एग्री विथ अवधेश कि बेसिकली बुद्ध ने तो यही कहा था, ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड डेथ, यू विल अंडरस्टैंड लाइफ। And I just, I thought I should be clarifying it, so I added कि बुद्ध ने तो, क्योंकि बाद में आप जब भी तिब्बतन बुद्धिज्म पढ़ेंगे खासकर, इतना चेंज हो गया है कि बुद्धिज्म के ओरिजिनल स्टेटमेंट से कि दोनों में बहुत चेंजेस है, और फिर जापानीज एंड चाइनीज फॉर्म्स में काफी चेंजेस हुआ। शंकराचार्य जी के इंटरेक्शन से बुद्धिज्म में और आगे चेंज हुआ, जबकि शंकराचार्य जी, लोग कहते हैं कि उन्होंने एक बुद्धिस्ट मॉन्क को हराया था एक डिबेट में, जो बुद्धिस्ट मॉन्क निहिलिज्म की बात करते थे कि कहीं कुछ नहीं है। तो शंकराचार्य जी ने साबित कर दिया कि नहीं, आत्मा तो है। दो बातें हुई कि वो बुद्धिस्ट मॉन्क के जो फॉलोअर्स थे, दे एक्सेप्टेड व्हाट शंकराचार्य वाज सेइंग, नॉट दैट कि दे बिकेम एंग्री एंड दे रिएक्टेड। लेकिन उस एक्सेप्टेंस के बाद में कालांतर में ये हुआ है कि बुद्ध जी के जो ओरिजिनल स्टेटमेंट्स है उनमें काफी परिवर्तन हुआ है, वेदांतिक इफेक्ट्स आ गए हैं। तो बहुत सारे स्टेटमेंट्स हम लोग आज सुनते हैं जो कि शायद एग्जैक्टली वो बुद्धिज्म से डायरेक्टली रिलेटेड नहीं है। अवधेश वुड बी बेटर इन अ बेटर पोजीशन टू एक्सप्लेन और टू इलैबोरेट ऑन दैट।
नहीं, you're absolutely right. इतने ज्यादा डिविजन्स हुए और सेक्ट बना कि क्योंकि उन्होंने तो प्रीच किया था, लेकिन उनका जो लास्ट 8 years का प्रीचिंग था, उसमें उन्होंने रिवील किया हाउ टू गेट एनलाइटेंड फॉर ले बिलीवर्स, फॉर लेमैन, एवरीवन। एंड वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग दैट ही रिवील्ड एंड ही टॉट वाज दैट एवरी बीइंग हैज द सीड ऑफ बुद्धाहुड। इसलिए हम लोग जो प्रैक्टिस करते हैं इसमें उनको हम लोग भगवान या ये नहीं करते हैं, उनकी जो टीचिंग्स है, उनकी जो फिलॉसफी है, उसको प्रैक्टिस में लाते हैं। तो उनका ये बिलीफ है कि एवरी ह्यूमन बीइंग हैज द सीड ऑफ बुद्धाहुड, एंड वो दर परत परत के ऊपर परत रहता है, एंड वी हैव टू अनपील इट, एंड इट विल गेट अनपील्ड, in this lifetime or in several lifetimes ultimately. And that is why in our practice we are very conscious that even if somebody is a non-practitioner, we have to respect that individual and the dignity of that individual as much as a practitioner, because the seed of Buddhahood is there in every being it is there. And at some point in time one will get enlightened, as they develop their own life and they evolve. So that is one thing that he talked about in his Lotus Sutra. उनका जो last 8 साल था वो Lotus Sutra उन्होंने preach किया था. And again, as you rightly said, Arunbhaiya, that it has been distorted and there has been a lot of interpretations, and one cannot really, even I cannot say which is the perfect one, but few things that I have shared is all from what I experienced in my practice, because इससे ज़्यादा claim नहीं कर सकता हूँ कुछ भी. So that's true, and I believe that this particular thing was the very important one, that कि हर इंसान में वो बुद्धाहुड है, वो एनलाइटनमेंट की सीड है, और वो किसी न किसी दिन और कभी न कभी उसके जीवन में वो परिवर्तित होके वो मैनिफेस्ट करेगा ही. And all that we keep doing in our practice, and again I use practice word always, is we keep trying to manifest that. That's all. Then trying to tap into the compassion, courage, wisdom. That is what I keep trying to do.
ये तुम्हारे प्रेजेंटेशन का तो वही सबसे स्ट्रॉन्ग पार्ट है. सब लोगों ने कहा है इट केम फ्रॉम हार्ट एंड यू स्पोक व्हाट यू हैव प्रैक्टिस.
Yeah, yeah.
सो दैट वाज द बेस्ट पार्ट ऑफ इट. और तुम्हारी बात से फिर मुझे सिद्धार्थ कृष्णा की भी याद आ रही है, या उन्होंने अपने सेशन में कहा था, ये जिन्होंने 102 ऑडियोज भेजे हैं 1 घंटे के, उसमें कहा था, मुझे ठीक से याद नहीं है, नहीं अपने वीडियो में कहा था, जो पाप की परिभाषा उन्होंने दी थी, अज्ञान.
जी.
हाँ, तो वो जो ज्ञान की बात कर रहे हैं, वो थोड़े ही वो जो स्पिरिचुअल बोलते हैं ज्ञान की, इस नॉलेज से काम नहीं चलेगा, हम लोग किसी और नॉलेज की बात कर रहे हैं. सिद्धार्था इज नॉट सेइंग दैट, ही इज सेइंग एग्जैक्टली व्हाट यू टॉक्ड अबाउट. कि भाई मैंने खाना बनाने का जब काम चुना, तो मेरी जिम्मेदारी बन जाती है कि उसके बारे में जितना ज्ञान मुझसे हासिल हो सकता है मैं हासिल करूं.
बिल्कुल. That's right.
मैं वो उस ज्ञान की बात, और उस ज्ञान में कोई भी कोताही करना ही पाप है, यही सिद्धार्थ ने कहा था. उस ज्ञान में कोई कोताही किया तो वो पाप है. तो 3 बातें जो तुम्हारी, क्योंकि मैं आई हैव undergone around 8 or 9 different forms of meditation, at least 10, including the group with whom I was associated. Gopal also ji is associated. और तो बहुत कम लोग ये बात कहते हैं कि, बहुत लोगों का कहना है कि आप ध्यान में बैठ जाओ, आप ध्यान करो, आपके गुरु या ईश्वर को जो करना है वो कर देंगे. I cannot contradict, I am not contradicting, but where I come from is exactly where you are coming from. रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, मेरा अज्ञान दूर करना मेरी रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है यार. वो किसी गुरु की, किसी ईश्वर की नहीं रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, वो मेरी रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. और उसमें मैं कोताही करता हूं तो मैंने पाप कर दिया, उसी मोमेंट मैंने पाप कर दिया.
That's right.
तो इसीलिए तुम जो बता रहे हो कि वो जो नॉलेज है, इट हैज टू बी एक्वायर्ड.
Yes.
Faith, of course, I mean faith, but finally practice. So you reminded me of Siddhartha and what is going on in my system in last 8-9 years in that. जो मैंने अपने सेशन में कहा था कि मेरे लिए जो फेथ है, मेरे लिए जो डिवोशन है, that devotion is devoted towards acquiring the knowledge.
Yeah.
That is where I am devoted. And finally practice. Awdhesh, it was actually, I was just talking to Sarita ma'am and group captain Ashutosh Kumar before we started. The reasons I respect you, and of course I will not speak about it right now because it may become too personal. But Awdhesh, now you, Ashutosh ji, now you'll understand where my respect was coming from for this man.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I mean, true.
What he did, where he started from, the reason why he reached there, from where he started, about which it will not be very prudent to talk in the open forum, that is practice.
Yes.
I mean, somebody else, I think I have taken
Yeah,
more time than I wanted.
correct. No problem, sir. So any other comments, any questions from anyone? So Awdheshji, maybe probably somebody else will also pop up, but I had one more point which I thought I'll talk about. I don't know whether it is a question or a comment or whatever, but you mentioned about understanding death, and I am a very, I'll say, less knowledgeable person on these aspects, because I have tried to understand philosophy. My wife does a lot of reading on Buddhism also. She does a lot of reading, but somehow I could not understand things. But of course, I started thinking about death when I lost some very close people, like my grandmother, my father. I started thinking about trying to understand death, and I was looking for a proof kind of thing, that if something is there after death, then what is the proof in a scientific way? Then I told myself that is something like a PN junction diode. You can only move in one direction. The other direction, what is happening, nobody has come back and told you. So you have to go by something else which can explain it. Probably science cannot explain it. That is what I told myself. So I don't know how far my understanding was right or wrong. I can see that it has prompted Sarita ma'am and Arun sir to respond to this. Yes.
So there are some people actually came back. Some people, what we call like a sudden cardiac death and after resuscitation, and they actually tell there is a whole science behind it. Now, main science does not approve that, but there is a whole department in like a University of Virginia, which talks about life after death. And they have experienced, they have interviewed maybe 10,000 people around the world in every culture and country and religion, and their experience, that what exactly they saw and what did they experience. So yeah, you can go online and check. There is a multiple book written, Life
Yeah.
After Death. So yes, for some people they do come back. That's what I just wanted to tell you. Thank you.
Okay. I too heard about it. Thank you, Sarita ma'am. Arun sir also wanted to say something. Arun sir, you are
No, no,
muted in case.
no. That hand raised was raised some time back. Let other people.
Okay.
Other people come.
Okay. Okay.
Or let Awdhesh respond to what Sarita ma'am said and what you asked. Let him respond.
Yeah.
So actually, my knowledge is very, very, very small in this area. I've tried to read about NDE, near-death experience. I've also tried to read sometimes what Dr. Savita ma'am said just now. And there is a new branch, or maybe old one, I don't know, they call it parapsychology, where they put people through some process and all. But honestly, I have actually no proof of it. I would leave it at the belief of it, and that's why I shared the experience of what I went through personally when I lost my father. And most recently, I lost my brother, was very, very like my father, he took care of us. Uh, I just prayed and I overcame the grief at that moment to handle myself. Grief and these things keep coming back. As I said earlier, you're never at a static state of life condition where you have overcome all your challenges. So it keeps coming back. Even now it happens. And I weep, I cry, I allow myself and I give myself the freedom to uh, feel and cry and weep. I don't try to hide things, because I used to do that 10, 15 years back, and I ruined my self quite a bit in that, trying to put that mask and show everyone, oh, it's okay, I'm very strong. So nowadays I'm little more, I allow my vulnerability to play out. But coming back to your question, is I can only share how I have dealt with it. Honestly, I don't know beyond that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Awdheshji. And I don't know if there are any further comments or questions from anyone. So I'll presume that we don't have any further points from anyone on this call. Awdheshji, thank you so much. And Shrish Chaudhary sir is here, and he doesn't, personally, he doesn't like anyone using adjectives. So I will not be using any adjectives for you also.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We all are very delighted, and we feel very happy about this session. So thank you so much, Awdheshji.
And thank you all for giving me this opportunity. I really, really feel great about it. Amongst all of you getting this chance, it's really a big achievement for me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.